gave what I believe is one of the most beautiful speeches in modern history. I'm at the abandoned Coca-Cola bottling plant in Indianapolis, Indiana. The original part was built in 1931 by the Younger brothers, and this was in operation until 1961.
Explain that.
It's a picture. It's Ted, and he runs the furniture store, and there's a bunch of
him on his building.
because he's self-centered.
The Fraser History Museum here in Louisville, Kentucky. This is actually George Washington's flintlock rifle. The Boone Family Bible. This is actually the first national Confederate flag. I've never seen so many toy soldiers in my life. See, look how easy that was. The Happy Birthday song. That right there is the world's largest baseball bat. Massive statue of Michelangelo's David. It's the site of Fort Nelson, and behind me is a statue by Alexander Calder. This is the statue of York. So this is a statue of General George Rogers Clark. So this is 4th Street Live, the Fremont Street of Louisville, Kentucky. That's Elvis's jacket and one of his TCB necklaces. So is that his Ringo Starr shirt? This is the Louisville Metro Hall. Amazing monument to Thomas Jefferson. Because I am at Cave Hill Cemetery in Louisville, Kentucky, the burial site of one of my personal heroes, George Rogers Clark. He is the conqueror of the Northwest Territory. There is a doggo on this one. This is the Satterwhite Memorial Temple. So this area is Cave Hill National Cemetery. The site of the 32nd Indiana Regiment Monument, a Confederate section here as well. The grave of Muhammad Ali, civil rights activist and heavyweight champion. Corporate magician for the Frito-Lay Company. Colonel Sanders, founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken. I am at the Speed Art Museum in Louisville, Kentucky. I've wanted to come here for a very, very long time, but it's been closed for like 5 years. The whole old historic building right here with all the cool stuff in it is closed today. And this is the 1852 Cathedral of the Assumption. I am at the Indiana State House in Indianapolis, Indiana, and today I am paging. I have my own security badge. I am at the Propylaeum in Indianapolis, Indiana. This building was the headquarters of the Indianapolis Women's Association that advocated for women's rights and suffrage. This sofa and bed from the Hotel Claypool were actually from Carole Lombard's room where she spent her last night before her death on January 15th, 1942. Eureka, Illinois, the Ronald Reagan Museum here at Eureka College. God bless St. Reagan and America. LeClaire, Iowa, a town on the Mississippi River, and this town is actually the birthplace of Buffalo Bill. This is the Lone Star, an actual Mississippi River paddle wheeler. Creepy taxidermy badge belonged to a young Abraham Lincoln. Antique archaeology in LeClaire, Iowa. This is the store of the American Pickers. Dubuque, Iowa. I'm at the Fenelon Place elevator. J.K. Graves. He built this in 1882, and it looks like it is hardly changed at all. The elf exit. Galena, Illinois. And Galena was, for a time, the home of General and President Ulysses S. Grant, and that is his home up there. Those are his cigars. John Quincy Adams had a freaking crocodile. Sad. That is not the most flattering statue. At Horseshoe Mound. The home of Representative Elihu Benjamin Washburn. This is the Belvedere Mansion. Ulysses S. Grant. The old Market House State Historic Site. It has one of the largest collections of Grant artifacts. This is actually Grant's top hat. He sat on that death mask. Oldest house. Galena and U.S. Grant Museum.
And I am General Ulysses S. Grant at your service.
Dying of black lung. General Grant's left boot. We have met the enemy and they are ours. Painting of We Surrender. This is inside St. Michael's Church. This was the first home of Ulysses S. Grant. West Street Sculpture Park in Galena, Illinois. The tractor lodge inside. Leaning Tower of Family Farming. 9/11 tribute. I am taking my first steps in Wisconsin. And I am specifically in Dickeyville, Wisconsin, at the Dickeyville Grotto. This is the work of Father Matthias Cornerus, who built this between 1925 and 1931.
World's
largest house on the rock in Spring Green, Wisconsin. And this is one of the greatest places in the world. He wanted to work for Frank Lloyd Wright, and then Frank Lloyd Wright said, "You're incapable." And then he proceeded to build this thing. I can't even begin to describe it. I'm obviously very high. Taliesin, the home and studio of Frank Lloyd Wright. And I am in Baraboo, Wisconsin, at the Circus World Museum. This is actually the original winter headquarters of the Ringling Brothers Circus. Elephant damage. An age of chivalry with a two-headed dragon. Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. Now there's a lot here, but I only have time for one thing, so I've chosen the Ripley's Believe It or Not. Especially small Fiji mermaid, fur-bearing trout, and there's a two-faced pig. Mummified head of Peter Curtin, the Dusseldorf vampire. It's another human skull. And here he is, Paul Bunyan, Babe the Blue Ox, as a Zoltar machine. So Elvis would have run up and stopped the fight. It would have been happening right around here. Madison, Wisconsin. And I am outside the state capital of Wisconsin. The Capitol building was built between 1906 and 1917.
Anyway, the significance of this room is these.
Wisconsin Veterans Museum. Fierce Areas of Antietam. This is a replica of Old Abe. Or Not Come Back Alive. Scene of Battle of the Bulge. That's Huey up there. It's cheese. Frank Lloyd Wright's Monona Terrace. It is a community and convention center. And it was actually not built during his lifetime. It was built later on. Troy Grove, Illinois. And I'm at the birthplace site of Wild Bill Hickok. Cincinnati, Ohio. The designer and engineer of this bridge was John A. Roebling. He's probably the most famous bridge engineer in U.S. history. Mini prototype of what would become the Brooklyn Bridge. Carew Tower. This tower was built in 1931. It was the tallest building for a long time. Hilton Netherland Plaza Hotel, where I'm staying. Memento Mori. I stumbled upon this oddity shop here in Loveland, Ohio. The Loveland Castle, also known as Chateau La Roche. This is the work of Harry Andrews, who built this massive medieval castle by hand. Hamilton, Ohio, at the Pyramid Hill Sculpture Park. I'm about to run into a tree. But yeah, this is a contemporary sculpture park along with an ancient sculpture museum. One of the highest points in the park. Pioneer House that was built into a hill. This is the inside of it. I'm at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Indianapolis, Indiana. Here with my friend Dylan. Even though I've lived in Indiana my whole life, I've never really been here. Danica Patrick. Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum and Hall of Fame. This is the Marmon Wasp. It is the very first winner of the style contest. Flying in a plane. My first destination is Salt Lake City, then Idaho Falls. A short flight to Idaho Falls, Idaho. So I just met this dog, Shasta, and she is so damn adorable. I'm going on a big road trip. I am at the Craters of the Moon, somewhere in Bannock County, Idaho. In-N-Out Burger in Centerville, Utah. I've never been to this chain. It's in my mouth. Orem, Utah, at Utah Valley University. Near the library, they have a cool stained glass window. The window is called the Roots of Knowledge and took 12 years to build. I'm in the ghost town of Thistle, Utah. This town was the site of the most costly flood and landslide in United States history. Some hermit here who's about to shoot me. Now I'm in Helper, Utah. Big John, the Minor Muffler Man. Found this old Sinclair gas station with a bunch of old cars. I'm here somewhere in the Moab, Utah vicinity. Those are Monter and Merrimack Butte. Canyonlands National Park in Utah. I've never been to this park before and I'm very excited. Mesa Arch. Moab, Utah at Dead Horse Point State Park. This is probably the most famous state park in Utah. Thelma and Louise, they jumped off from the police right here. I am in Moab, Utah, and tonight I am glamping, which is, I guess it's like a step up from camping. Oh no. Arches National Park in Utah. Oregon. And this is the courthouse tower. This is called the Balanced Rock. Delicate Arch, the most famous natural arch in the world. This area is called the Fiery Furnace. One of the coolest and largest arches. I'm in Moab, Utah at the Hole in the Rock. Some classic roadside attraction goodness right here. Albert Christensen carved a house in this rock, but what I didn't know, they don't allow photography or video inside the house. They're pooping on the second floor. It's a little Bigfoot. These are some super creepy wax figures. Bluff, Utah, and I'm outside of the Cottonwood Steakhouse. New Mexico. I've never been to this state before. Here in this country, this massive country, there's only one spot where 4 states collide. 4 Corners Monument. Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado all intersect with each other. Kayenta, Arizona. Now, I'm not a fan of Burger King, but they have the largest exhibit on the Navajo Code Talkers. And behind me is where Forrest Gump stopped running. I'm pretty tired. I think I'll go home now. Monument Valley Navajo Tribal Park in Arizona. That's where I am currently, but it's also in Utah. And this is one of the most iconic places in the whole of the United States. Push. Grand Canyon Village at Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona. John Verkamp opened a store in the South Rim in 1898. This is Hopi House. It was built in 1905 and designed by Mary Jane Coulter. The 1905 El Tavar Hotel.
Our party gathered at the comfortable El Tavar Hotel.
Kolb Photographic Studio. A real unidentified human skeleton lookout studio designed by the architect Mary Jane Coulter. It ends at Hermit's Rest. Was also designed by Mary Jane Coulter. So now I've stopped off at Mojave Point. See the sunset at Yaqui Point. All right, it is 4 something in the morning for a Grand Canyon sunrise. The main South Rim Visitor Center, hike out to Mather Point. Yavapai Geology Museum. I am at the Tusayan Museum and Ruins. These are the archaeological ruins of some Pueblo Native Americans. This was the site of their large kiva. Hey, look at that. That's the Grand Canyon. This is La Pan Point. Desert View Viewpoint. This was designed by the architect Mary Jane Coulter from Santa Fe. I'm at Horseshoe Bend now. Unfortunately, I can only get here really late. The sunset, I've been doing a mile trail to try to get to it in time. Page, Arizona, and I'm going to be going into Lower Antelope Canyon. This is probably the coolest slot canyon in the world. The Powell Museum in Page, Arizona. This is a small museum. I believe it is based around one of the first white explorers in the region, John Wesley Powell. Page, Arizona at Glen Canyon National Recreation Area, and I'm outside of the Glen Canyon Dam on Lake Powell. Glen Canyon National Recreation Area, more specifically Marble Canyon, Arizona, and more specifically than that, I'm at the historic Navajo Bridges. These cliffs are Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. Marble Canyon, Arizona, and I'm outside of the abandoned cliff dwelling of Blanche Russell. Not sure what this was supposed to be. Jacob Lake, Arizona in Kaibab National Forest. I'm outside of the historic Jacob Lake Inn. You can buy a shank. That's awesome. North Rim of Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona. But North Rim has its own, the Grand Canyon Lodge. I like the chandelier. Brighty the Burro. And it says if you touch his nose, you'll get good luck. This view from the lodge is my first view of the Grand Canyon. Here's a plaque with Teddy Roosevelt on it. Look. Valhalla Pueblo Ruins. Still think this one is my favorite. The Angel's Window at Cape Royal. The big panorama view from the end of it. No words to describe it. Greatest Earth on Show, Kanab, Utah, and I'm outside of the Little Hollywood Museum. A lot of Western TV shows and all sorts of movies have been filmed in the Southwest landscape. He died with his boots on. Wait, am I in the prostitute one? I'm not sure what this is doing here. It doesn't have any eyes. This is actually horrifying. This poor man has no arms. I'm not sure what is in his mouth, and this guy has no face. Stopping over in Mount Carmel Junction, Utah, I'm gonna stop to eat at the Thunderbird Restaurant, home of homemade pies. I wonder if is she the hoe?
Zion National Park in Utah. I'm very excited. This is my first time here. Temple of Sinawava. Actually found somewhere where there's not like thousands of people. The historic Zion Lodge. One of the most famous sites here, the Court of the Patriarchs. Now I'm going to be heading into the Zion Human History Museum. Small town of Orderville, Utah. Odd looking structure. Turns out it is the Rock Stop. It started in 1953 and it's inside a giant fiberglass rock. What are these called again?
Subterranean.
There's some petrified wood out here. Looks pretty cool, but it's not a 1960s fiberglass rock. Dixie National Forest. It's the Red Canyon. Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah. Okay, this is the Bryce Canyon Amphitheater. That's so cool. I'm gonna do a little bit of the Navajo Loop Trail that goes down into the canyon. All those hoodoos. Wow. And now I've stopped at the Bryce Canyon Lodge. Vivid. Beaver, sorry, this is serious. Utah, the statue of Philo T. Farnsworth, the father of television. Supposedly, the birthplace cabin of Philo T. Farnsworth. Lehi, Utah. This was in the 1984 movie Footloose. Murray, Utah, the first KFC and the first of the actual franchise. I would like to thank our Lord and Savior Colonel Sanders for these gifts of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Preston, Idaho, Napoleon Dynamite filming locations. The 2004 movie Napoleon Dynamite is one of the best movies ever made. And it was all filmed here in this little town of Preston. Preston Senior High School. And this is the original bike rack, still in about the exact same location. And this was Pedro's house. I'm at a very, very tragic site that not a lot of people know about. I'm at the site of the Bear River Massacre. It is the worst massacre against the Native Americans in US history. Teton Valley Overlook. This is probably the best view of Teton Valley, and exploring the town of Driggs and Teton Valley, the quiet side of the Grand Tetons. There is the buffalo on top of the building. Little Daisy Doo here. In the early 1900s.
Private theater.
This is one of the ultimate Idaho attractions. Old-fashioned soda fountain. I'm going to be going up in a little plane over the valley. Grand Teton National Park, Wyoming. This is one of my favorite places in the world. I'm on top of Signal Mountain. Mount Moran there is the second tallest of the Tetons. Schwabacher Landing. It's really cool. Ansel Adams took one of his most famous photos from about the spot that I'm in. This is the iconic shot of the world's most photographed barn, Jackson Lake Lodge. Top of the hill where John D. Rockefeller Jr. had a historic picnic. Jackson, Wyoming. You last of the Old West. One of the world famous antler arches. Town the Cowboy is rotating. It hasn't done this since the 1940s. I've been coming to this candy shop my whole life. This is one of my favorite shops, By Nature Gallery. Cowboy coaster and the Alpine slide at Snow King Resort. Village, Wyoming. Going to be doing the Bridger gondola. It's a baby one. Goes up to a restaurant, not quite as high, but it should still be cool. Yellowstone National Park, Idaho. There's actually a little sliver of Yellowstone in Idaho. Cave Falls. It's about 2 hours off of any of the main Yellowstone roads. This is the only place in the United States where murder is legal. This is Bitch Creek. Roadside restaurant here, the Frost Stop Drive-In. Grand Targhee Resort in Alta, Wyoming. Falls, Idaho, outside of the Museum of Idaho steampunk exhibit. Specimen of a baby pig split open. Well, these are from EBR1. From Henry Rock. That had to be the most awful thing ever. This all belonged to Dugout Dick. Spencer, Idaho, the gem state. We'll be visiting the Spencer Opal Mines. So I am going to dig for opals. I don't know what I'm doing. I just climbed on top of it, going to antique malls here in Idaho Falls, Idaho. The Trackside Antique Mall next to this food jar. Collector's Corner Museum. They have over 125 unique collections in this museum. A Trump doll. Jitterbugs are the spawn of hell. First, then, Northgate Antiques.
What are you doing in my swamp?
Carving by Peter Taw. This appears to be an elk. I'm in Idaho Falls, Idaho. Massive waterfall in town. Statue of a fur trapper. A rock. A lot of famous people stayed here. That is the Ty Hack Memorial. I'm in DuBois, Wyoming. I am outside of the National Bighorn Sheep Museum. I just drove about 4 hours to see the Sheep Museum. Let's go learn about some bighorn sheep. DuBois Museum. This is a historical museum on this little Wyoming town. There's a bunny. Fathom it. I go to a school with about 4,000 kids. This is where a ranger would live. Reserved for the Ty Hacks. The most amazing animal here is the jackalope, and I am outside of the Jackalope Travel Mart and exhibit. Jackalope Farm, bagpipes and a kill, and that is a sniper. Giant jackalope you could ride. Potatoes. Ugh. I'm sitting on the jackalope. And my new jackalope friend. Yep, Du Bois is definitely an amazing town. Fiberglass black bear. That is the Grand Tetons. Full sign. Heading to Washington, D.C. I somehow got nominated for the National Youth Leadership Conference on Diplomacy, National Security, and Intelligence. So I'm doing it. Let's go. In Chantilly, Virginia, outside of the National Air and Space Museum's Udvar Hazy Center. It's officially amazing. I feel like such an idiot right now. This is the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, the Captain Rickenbacker's uniform. That is the Enola Gay. This is the aircraft that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. This is a flight suit worn by Amelia Earhart. Bird Antarctic Expeditions. To fly all the way around the world. This plane was at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. Discovery. It is the longest serving and the most successful space shuttle in history. Flotation bags from Apollo 11, used by the Apollo 11 astronauts after they returned from the moon.
The forum took place at the Marriott in Falls Church, Virginia. Overall, very disappointing, unfortunately. The Thomas Jefferson Memorial at dawn. I went into the U.S. Capitol, onto the floor of the House of Representatives chamber, a very rare experience. The Department of State building inside the Lloyd Henderson Conference Hall. Having lunch at the Tyson's Corner Mall in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. The United States Air Force Memorial in Arlington, Virginia has 3 270-foot tall spires. The United States Marine Corps Memorial, also known as the Iwo Jima Memorial, depicting the famous photo of the flag raising on Mount Suribachi. Inside the Pentagon, headquarters of the Department of Defense. Also got to see the 9/11 Memorial Chapel at the plane impact site. Pentagon City Mall. Inside the J. Edgar Hoover FBI building for the FBI Experience Museum. Quick visit to Arlington National Cemetery, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier replaying.
Hey, cut! Oh!
First long-awaited visit to the grave of President John F. Kennedy. Now on the National Mall.
And there is the Washington Monument. I'm now going to be heading into the Freer Gallery of Art. This was the first art museum of the Smithsonian Institution.
Mostly a collection of Asian art and artifacts, but also art by James McNeill Whistler, including his incredible Peacock Room. The National Museum of Natural History.
Probably with the world's largest tongue. Taxidermy brown bear.
That is the Hope Diamond.
I'm in historic Old Town, Alexandria, Virginia. This is one of the most historic colonial towns in the United States. Vendels and the Washington's all like connections through family. We lived here from age 11 until we went to West Point. Going to the left, it goes to the nation's capital. And down this way, we built right along the waterfront here in the downtown area. But they turned it into a studio, I think like 80 artists. This is one of the few cities in the United States to have a cobblestone street.
Gatsby's Tavern.
Yep, George Washington owned a townhouse right here at John Carlisle.
The National World War II Memorial at dusk. Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Lincoln Memorial. Korean War Veterans Memorial.
I'm in Washington, D.C., and I am outside of the Washington National Cathedral. This sits at the highest point in the city, and it is the 6th largest cathedral in the world.
One of the most beautiful buildings I've ever been to. The tomb of President Woodrow Wilson. There's a moon rock in that window.
Alright, so I'm up on one of the towers. I got to come up here, and I think it's the highest point in the District of Columbia that civilians can get into. East building of the National Gallery of Art. This is the modern and contemporary art. West building of the National Gallery of Art.
Leonardo da Vinci.
President James Garfield got assassinated here. This is a temperance fountain. This is a monument to Louis-Jacques Mandé Duguerre. National Portrait Gallery in the old Patent Office building. This is part of the Smithsonian.
Female Supreme Court justices. All of the official presidential portraits. Smithsonian Museum of American Art.
Embassy Row, Massachusetts Avenue of St. Jerome the Priest outside of it. That is the home of President Woodrow Wilson. Here's a statue of Mahatma Gandhi. It's supposed to be Barack Obama as a kid. That is the mansion of James G. Blaine. At the center is a fountain sculpted by Daniel Chester French.
The Cathedral of St. Matthew the Apostle, the site of President John F. Kennedy's funeral on November 25th, 1963.
Arlington, Virginia, outside of Arlington National Cemetery. This is our nation's most sacred shrine. This is the grave of Medgar Evers. He did a lot of civil rights work, but he got assassinated on his driveway with his family and home. The grave of President William Howard Taft. This is the grave of Robert Todd Lincoln. Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American Supreme Court Justice.
The grave of President John F. Kennedy and Jackie Kennedy. The Eternal Flame. The grave of Robert F. Kennedy, a personal hero of mine. Senator Ted Kennedy's grave.
That is the home where he decided to go with Virginia in the Civil War. Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is where an unknown soldier from World War I, World War II, and the Korean War are laid to rest. I'm going to witness the changing of the guard.
Allez! Ice! Ouch!
And this was a huge deal. This is the Confederate Memorial. Here's the grave of Chief Justice Earl Warren. Really wanted to nuke the commies. Astro Senator John Glenn. He was the most decorated soldier. General George C. Marshall. St. John's Church, the oldest church in Washington, D.C.
The pew of the presidents and Lincoln's lonely pew in the back. Off the Record Bar and Restaurant, a favorite secretive spot of DC insiders, politicians, and lobbyists.
Andrew Jackson, the White House, and the Washington Monument. The home of Stephen Decatur. This is the Blair House. There was an assassination attempt. It could have gone very badly. That happened right here. The White House in Washington, D.C. This is the president's residence it has since 1800 when John Adams moved in. There's another big protest set up. I think this is one of the ones that's manned 24/7. As I mentioned, this was the first equestrian statue in the United States. This building is called the Little White House. Here's the statue of the Marquis de Lafayette. This is the Treasury Building. Yeah, there's a lot of batshit crazy people out here. National Museum of African American History and Culture. This is the newest Smithsonian museum about the African American experience here in the United States. It just opened in 2016. I'm really excited to see what they did with this.
The original casket of Emmett Till. The Washington Monument.
I'm at the National World War II Memorial. This is a memorial built in 2005 to honor the over 400,000 Americans who died in World War II, as well as all the veterans who had fought during that war. Was here, that is the original meme.
Vietnam Nurses Memorial.
Vietnam Veterans Memorial. I'm at the Lincoln Memorial. I'm at the Korean War Veterans Memorial, dedicated to American veterans who were killed in the Forgotten War. The Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, a new memorial to the great civil rights leader.
The Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial. Thomas Jefferson Memorial in the neoclassic style.
Ford's Theater, National Historic Site. This is where Abraham Lincoln was assassinated on April 14th, 1865.
Bloodstained pillow, the overcoat, Booth's dagger, the gun that killed Lincoln.
Across the street into the Peterson house, where he died the next morning.
The room Lincoln died in. "34-foot tower of every book about Lincoln."
This old school burger joint called Ollie's Trolley. The old post office pavilion is now the Trump International Hotel, and now I'm gonna head up into the tower. Here's everyone's favorite, the IRS. National Museum of American History is one of the greatest collections of American history. There's so many cool artifacts in here.
Only presidential statue with nipples. Declaration of Sentiments table. George Washington's general uniform and his sword. General Andrew Jackson's uniform and sword. Lee's surrender table and chairs. Ryan Z, General Sheridan's horse. Sergeant Stubby. Gunboat Philadelphia. The dresses of the first ladies. The presidential exhibit. Teddy Roosevelt's chaps. Bill Clinton's saxophone. Warren G. Harding's pajamas. Abraham Lincoln's top hat. McKinley's pocket of death. FDR's eyeglasses.
I'm going to be visiting the Smithsonian Castle, the original Smithsonian building.
Tomb of James Smithson.
It used to be the main national museum of the Smithsonian, and this is the Smithsonian Carousel, the Hirshhorn Museum, Rodin, Yoko Ono. I'm now in the sculpture garden of the National Gallery. House sculptures they did, they're really cool. And he passed away a few months ago. They have a giant fountain pool with the National Archives in the background. It's very simple, it just says in memory of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. This is the statue of a lone sailor. In front of the Capitol is the Ulysses S. Grant Memorial. A monument that I hope all the Warhawks in Congress see on a daily basis. I am at the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. This is where the House of Representatives and the Senate has met for 200 years, and I'm going to go inside.
First time seeing the rotunda without scaffolding.
Thomas Jefferson Building of the Library of Congress, the world's largest library.
Thomas Jefferson's books. Hamilton's last letter.
Supreme Court, the highest court in our country. National Air and Space Museum. This museum has like the best aviation collection in the world.
The Wright Brothers 1903 Wright Flyer. Amelia Earhart's Lockheed Vega. The Spirit of St. Louis. Abel the Space Monkey's skin.
I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana at the 2018 Indiana State Fair.
It is far better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open one's mouth and remove all doubt.
Okay, we're going into Hooks Drugstore and Museum. This is like an early 20th century drugstore and pharmacy. I'm in Terre Haute, Indiana at the Terre Haute Air Show, and the main event here is going to be the Blue Angels, which I've never seen before, so really excited for this. So here he is, the legend himself, Jacob the Carpetbagger. Yeah, so got this for 100,000 subscribers, and he bashed an old man's head with this several times.
You're making me sound like a psychopath.
This one's in the bag.
I'm in Madison, Indiana, outside of the Lanier Mansion State Historic Site, and this house is very interesting. It belonged to James F.D. Lanier, who was a very wealthy banker, as you can tell, because that's a big house, and it's right along the Ohio River. I am at the Jefferson County Historical Society Museum. I'm also going to be going to the Madison Railroad Station Museum here in Madison, Indiana. It's a great museum about local history and the railroad history here, and what was one of the most important towns in Indiana. Broadway Hotel and Tavern. It is the oldest hotel and tavern in Indiana. Is the home of Jeremiah Sullivan. He was an early politician and judge here in Madison. And it is the oldest Masonic lodge in Indiana. Francis Costigan House. He was the most important architect here in town. Dr. William Hutchings Office and Museum. This is one of the best examples in the country of the horror of a 19th century doctor. Alright, this behind me is Broadway Fountain. They designed it off the fountain at the Place de la Concorde in Paris and the Crystal Palace in London. This one is red. That is a very cool sculpture. So after reading about the Incline Railway at the museum, I decided to go see if there was anything left of it, and it does still exist. I'm walking on it right now. And this is the Key West Shrimp House, where I'm having my 17th birthday dinner. Now I'm making a quick stop in downtown Nashville, Indiana. This is the Brown County Courthouse. And I didn't know about this museum. This is the Brown County Historical Museum. Often collect taxidermy. Nashville, Indiana at T.C. Steele State Historic Site. This is the home of the artist Theodore Clement Steele. I guess you could consider him the Indiana equivalent of Monet or someone like that. This is where Theodore Clement Steele is laid to rest. I'm on the outskirts of Bloomington, Indiana. Out here hidden in the woods is something very unique. This is the abandoned Knights Ridge Observatory. Smithville, Indiana, Baker's Junction Railroad Museum and Haunted Train. Unfortunately, it is not open today. Commie fascists. Henryville, Indiana. This is a town that Colonel Harlan Sanders was actually born in. Colonel Sanders is actually a Hoosier. And this was his home, Blackwood Hall. The Claudia Sanders Dinner House in Shelbyville, Kentucky. Very exciting to complete my KFC historic sites. It is sickening how Colonel Sanders intended it. Lexington, Kentucky. E-Horse Attraction, Kentucky Horse Park. Horse Cemetery, the International Museum of the Horse. horse trophies. The skeleton of Lexington, the racehorse. The grave of Manowar. Kentucky for Kentucky Fun Mall. Cocaine Bear. A bear that ate $15 million worth of cocaine. He's taxidermied. The Parkette Drive-In. This is a legit 1950s drive-in restaurant.
That is a good one. But now I'm a little.
Horse Cemetery. Hidden back here. Took a while to find it. And this is Ashland, the estate of Henry Clay, the great compromiser. He is one of the most important politicians in early American history, and this was his farm. Wow, this is Henry Clay's coach. Seated Abraham Lincoln, a native Kentuckian. So he was actually the town drunk. This is the tomb of the great compromiser Henry Clay. His body lies inside that sarcophagus. Traitor Vice President John C. Breckinridge was in downtown Lexington. It has been removed. So as a Hoosier, gotta say, I don't like this guy very much. A camel on a street corner. The Hunt Morgan House, home to the prominent Hunt and Morgan families. That included John Hunt Morgan, even though we didn't technically live in this house. Henry Clay's law office. Tomorrow morning I'm actually doing my first college visit here in Transylvania. It is the Monroe Moosnick Medical and Science Museums. It is one of the best collections of medical history and artifacts in the country. And I have a special appointment to go see the collection. The most politically connected hairball. Biblical Mini Golf in Lexington, Kentucky. This is a classic course that was made in 1987 and it's very old school. Cool store, look at all that junk. The girlhood home of Mary Todd Lincoln, the wife of President Abraham Lincoln, the former First Lady. So this is a First Lady historic site. She was the daughter of a very prominent family here in Lexington. Mary Todd Lincoln's mourning blouse. I'm in Harrodsburg, Kentucky at Old Fort Herod State Park, the oldest white settlements west of the Allegheny Mountains. Oldest pioneer cemetery in the state of Kentucky. Pretty important guy in American history. The Mansion Museum cabin that Thomas Lincoln and Nancy Hanks Lincoln were married in. And this is where the event that conceived Abraham Lincoln happens. Beaumont Inn. Night has fallen at the Shaker Village of Pleasant Hill. Staying in the 1817 East Family dwelling tonight. The Shaker Village at Pleasant Hill. This is one of the largest Shaker villages in the country. This was a religious group. These are American guinea hogs.
That one and doing these spontaneous shaking motions.
Rita, by the way.
Okay. Shimp's Confectionery. This is one of the most historic candy shops in the United States, and they have a little candy museum and old-timey methods of making candy. The Candy Museum. Passing through Cave City, Kentucky. Model UN Conference at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. The 1897 Parthenon replica.
Have fry sauce in my burger. Exactly. On the Wendy's,
At like 4 a.m. in the morning, hang up on my next adventure to Fort Myers, Florida. Alright, making my first stop here at the Sun Harvest Citrus Market. One of the workers accused me of like taking photos to start up another citrus shop. Fort Myers Beach, Florida. And this is a place I've been to 18 times now. Come here every year of my life. I've pretty much grown up here. And this is Times Square. Dead crab. And this is Times Square at night. Bowditch Point Park. Love these. Here's the drunk TV head at night. I am in Bonita Springs, Florida at a true classic Florida roadside attraction. This is the Everglades Wonder Gardens. How do you even get in here? From the courtyard between the World Trade Center, man on a hoop. This is a 1920s nostalgic mural. Wooten's airboat rides and animal park in Okeechobee, Florida. This is my first trip to the Everglades, so I'm gonna go on an airboat.
They actually have blood vessels in them, so as he sits up in the sun, it warms up his body temperature. In the back.
Another crocodile right there. Wow, look at this guy. This is the Okeechobee, Florida post office. That's literally a shack. Roadside restaurant here in Okeechobee. Joni's Blue Crab Cafe. These photographs of naked women. Okeechobee, Florida, at the Skunk Ape Research Headquarters. The skunk ape roams around the Everglades ecosystem. I guess a similar family of species to Bigfoot. Would not want that attacking me, oh my god. Hello. I wonder how old these are. Big Cypress National Preserve. Currently in Okeechobee, Florida, but this is in the southern part of Florida. It's part of the Everglades ecosystem. Chokoloskee Island, Florida, way down in the southwest of the state. And I am at a true relic of Floridan history. This is the Smallwood store. It was built in 1910 by Ted Smallwood. So this is like a legit pioneer trading post, and I guess it's almost perfectly preserved. Everglades City, Florida. Sketchy Everglades Observation Tower. Real life turtle. Fort Myers Beach, Florida, at Salty Sam's Marina, and let's go sailing. Fabulous Avon, Indiana, and this right here is a haunted bridge. So when they were constructing this bridge, one of the workers, his name was Dad Jones, and whatever he was on collapsed and he fell into the concrete in the foundations. And I'm in Danville, Indiana now, and look at that. Look at the courthouse there. It's all decorated for Christmas. Right here on the courthouse square is the Mayberry Cafe. This is a Andy Griffith themed restaurant. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, outside of the Eiteljorg Museum of Western Art and the American Indian. This is one of the best collections of Western artifacts in the country. And this is the General Mad Anthony Wayne flag. Jingle rails at the Eiteljorg. The Real West Special Exhibit. The sheriff has been here for 71 years. Short, slippery noodle. And this is from Italy. It's hand carved. And Monument Circle at Christmas time.